Hey guys, Project Evidence X here. Recently I made a video on TikTok briefly talking about scary boss fights in games that I grew up playing. And not only was I really happy with the reception it got, and finding out more people are familiar with the game itself, it got me thinking, why did they put so much effort into making that enemy look so terrifying? Did a bunch of developers really just sit in a room and decide, hey, let's give the kids nightmares and a fear of water in the process? You know, for kids. Doubt it. But this has been a common pattern with video games from back in the day, even now. Not just in Tai, which I'll break down a couple other boss fights from the game later on, but a lot of games have rather terrifying enemies or obstacles for what feels like little to no reason behind it. For example, a rather infamous one, is the eel from Super Mario 64. Like, I get that technology and graphics were not at 100% yet, I get it, but limited tech aside, why is this thing so scary? Nintendo at the time trying to give players a fear of the deep water? Cause if so, congrats I guess. You just made a bunch of people hydrophobic and never want to swim again. Me included.
You can't even swim to begin with, why are you upset?
Not the point. Moving on. Actually scratch that. I discovered another pattern here. It's always the underwater levels that have like the scariest things in them. To get back into talking about Tai the Tasmanian Tiger, before you get to Jaws Mark 700, you encounter not only another eel, but real sharks as well. Ain't life in the deep blue sea just swell? Don't get me wrong, I love this game. It's one of my favorite platformers from when I was a kid, and it still holds up rather well, spawning a remaster to newer consoles. But good grief did it have its moments of just being scary to me. I used to generally be scared of boss fights entirely as a kid, because of this game and others that I'll get into as well. Let me start this off by saying I enjoy all the games I'm about to mention, even going as far as to say some of my favorites, except maybe one of them. I prefer this one's sequel any day. Point is, I'm not ranting about these things because I have some serious vendetta towards them. I'm simply making conversation about my past gaming experiences and more or less poking at a previous fear that I have long since conquered. With that out of the way, let's dive further. I'll get the rest of the Tai boss fight fears out of the way so we can move on to the others. Considering this is the one game I believe started my dislike of boss fights, or at the very least cemented my concerns with them as a kid, because I have such a vivid memory of the exact moment in this where I was just like, alright, I'm gonna head out, before handing my older brother the controller and just being the designated spectator for boss fights. The following clip is gameplay I captured a while ago, so I hope you enjoy.
Roll it.
Keep in mind, I was like 6 or 7 years old at the time. Am I crazy for wanting to put the controller away at such a young age? I mean, look at this thing. Mine is the mum tattoo. Seeing this thing charge you at full speed and you just gotta figure out how to hurt it was absolutely terrifying. And then when you finally manage to hurt it, it lets out this piercing screech of a roar. It sounds like a titan stumped its toe and a bunch of bats flew out of a cave. And that was the first boss you face, this giant Goliath hellspawn of a bull. Thankfully, after you win against it, it returns later for a level where you get to ride on its back in its really big open area. So there eventually comes a plus to beating it, but the damage was done. Plus I already got comfortable watching my brother play the game instead, while my mind still tries to comprehend this new alliance me and this monster have suddenly made. Like, am I supposed to just forget how you tried to stomp me out like a few levels back? I guess so. But that's enough about that game. And since we're still discussing boss fights on land this time around, or at least above it, Pac-Man World 2 definitely had a fair amount of nightmare-inducing bosses and enemies as well. And by a fair amount, I mean, I don't know, all of them. When I said I hated boss fights as a kid, I really hated boss fights. And it didn't help that I legitimately saw every one of the boss fights be genuinely scary. I also have gameplay to show for some of the bosses just for you to see what I see as far as them being scary to Kid Project.
Roll it.
You might be saying to yourself, Project, you were afraid of a robot frog? Yes. From all the sounds of bells, gears turning and creaking it was making, and how this thing will legit try to crush you after you damage it or get too far from it, it was not a fun experience for young me. And although the rest of the bosses would be the same enemy type with a different element variant, the way they circle you like a shark on platforms that later become more hazardous to increase difficulty wasn't a good switch up for me. But this game, I believe, slowly got me wanting to beat a boss fight for the first time, because my brother and I would take turns playing it, and I thought how cool it was to see him defeat them with ease. Plus, Pac-Man was a video game character I was already familiar with, which made it more approachable. Unlike Ty, and I promise this is the last time I'll mention him in this video, was a new character entirely for the both of us, so the unfamiliar territory just made every enemy stand out even more. However, there was one game that I was equally acquainted with that still has their terrifying boss fight to continue its reign of terror to the new generations and give the old fans some good old PTSD. The game in question was none other than Mega Man, and the enemy in question is the infamous Yellow Devil itself. I don't know a single person that grew up with Mega Man who enjoyed fighting or even looking at this thing. Like, it legit looks like sentient pus with pink eye. Sorry for making that image in your head now, but this thing is really gross to look at, and it moves around just as unpleasantly. My first experience with this was thankfully not the original, but going based on the Some Call Me Johnny episode from back in the day, the original is ridiculously difficult. Most people will try to cheese it by using the pause glitch with its weakness Sparkman's attack to beat it, and I don't blame him for it. I fought it in this bonus game on the Mega Man Anniversary Collection, but it's not a sight for pleasant eyes, that's for sure. And that just about wraps it up. I wanted to spark this conversation because all these games were rated E for everyone, or everyone 10 it up at the most. Not trying to make a big deal like, how dare you show these monstrosities to children, or anything like that. But I find it interesting that although they seemed terrifying at the time, when you finally get to experience that sense of victory over them, it's like an absolute rush for a kid. So maybe that was the whole point of them being big and scary, as a rite of passage in a way for the player overcoming such an obstacle. Like, wow, look at how skilled you are, or look at how strong you are, you can beat anybody. And that's honestly rather inspiring. Plus nowadays, I welcome a challenging boss fight, whether I'm fully prepared for it or not, simply because I have the confidence now to do so. Sometimes a bit too much confidence, but still. I hope you guys truly enjoyed this video, and hope you enjoyed this brand new format of videos as well. This took a lot of time to make, but it was also a lot of fun to edit and put together. So if you'd like to see videos like these, be sure to leave a like and comment, and subscribe for more content. It really means a lot. Also follow my other social medias in the description below. Anyways, this has been Project Epicness X, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace, love, and dove, and have a blessed day.